Greetings and welcome to the Pure Report. I'm your host, Rob Ludeman. It is time to bring the orange. And as you can see, the studio today is filled with two of my favorite gentlemen, and we are going to be going all into Fusion today. It is about time, gents. We have not really talked enough about Fusion, so I'm really happy to get you in here to go into that. Mr. Nelson.
Hey.
Mike Nelson.
Hey.
Technical. We got two from the technical evangelist team in here today.
Oh, God help
and
us
Mr.
all.
Nelson, I'm going to start off with you. You are a first timer.
Yes,
which
I
means
am.
you get the beanie. And you know what? You're one of the people that actually can use it because it is really, really cold in
Yeah,
Wisconsin.
Mike. I was
going to
say Mike's a bona fide cheesehead. So
He's a
he
bona fide
needs
cheesehead
something like that.
and is here.
Yep.
How's it been? How's the week been for you?
Oh,
Good
it's been
time being down
fantastic.
here?
I love coming here. I love seeing you, of course, and seeing everybody else. But I got to tell you, coming to California, it's too warm here. It's too warm.
It's true. It's September.
It even rained
Why
yesterday.
isn't it free? Why isn't it frozen over yet?
Yeah.
Where's the ice? Where's the snow?
Mike, you're a longtime veteran. I think we put that way of Pure.
Yes, sir.
Which is good. Yeah, you're different on that.
That's all right. That's so good. It's all good.
What have you been up to at Pure over the years?
Oh,
You've done a lot of things here.
Yeah. I started out when I came to Pure. I was working on the Microsoft side, right?
All right.
So Microsoft integrations, and worked on that team. We kind of went through some changes there, and got moved over to product marketing.
Okay.
And really kind of focused around Fusion when we started launching Fusion. And as you know, there was a prior version of Fusion, and we kind of relaunched Fusion.
Yep.
But we're really focused now on automating outcomes with that, and that's been my focus around the automation, around APIs, SDKs. Because when I worked from the Microsoft side, I was actually a PM.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that, but
Yeah.
I actually PM'd a couple of the integrations. So I have experience from there, and I try to bring that over into marketing and try and be a little bit of a bridge, if you will, between the two groups. So.
It's a natural fit, though, right? Because you do spend a lot of time with PowerShell and doing things around automation and scripting, and if it moves, then script it.
That's right.
So you don't have to keep. So you have to keep doing it. And I'll borrow a little bit from Ron Burgundy here. Mike's kind of a big deal.
He is. Yeah.
How many
He is.
years in a row have you been an MVP at Microsoft? Right.
Yeah, I'm on my 11th year.
11th year. So
Yeah.
kind of a
Jeez.
big deal.
Yeah.
Right?
And actually, a couple of years ago, I became a dual MVP, which is really kind of rare.
How does
where
that work?
So when you become an MVP, you're pretty much put into a category, right?
All right.
And that category is your specialty. And there are a few folks that are actually awarded twice, and they're for two different categories. So
Okay.
I was awarded in Azure for PowerShell,
All right.
because PowerShell falls under that. But I'm also in what they call cloud and data center management.
Oh,
Because of my work specifically around when I worked on Hyper-V and SCOM, System Center Operation
SCOM,
Manager.
yeah.
So yeah, it's been a great ride with Microsoft. I got to tell you, when I hit 10, I was like, man, this is it. This is. I mean, I'm kind of satisfied if I don't make it to 11, because you have to reapply every year.
No, yeah.
I don't even know that. Is
You have
gotta
to put
go
effort
through
in. It
you
doesn't
gotta
just
go through
happen.
it. You got to go.
Do
through
they
the
have
whole
like
process.
feats of strength and stuff, or
Nah,
is it
no,
like it's not
no.
like?
You go through a whole review though with product managers at Microsoft.
Oh, wow.
and it's a big deal. So,
Comprehensive.
Yeah,
It's a big
but
deal.
yeah,
It's
it
great.
is.
And that's why I wanted to mention it here, because I know you've earned it, and we have a number of MVPs that work here at Pure and are also longtime MVPs. We have a great
It drifts
stable
close to the
of Microsoft
VCDX
people.
thing. It sounds like a VCDX, like a design.
No, there's a lot more of them
Is
than
there more?
VCDX.
Okay,
there
Let's
is.
not get in a fight here.
No,
No,
thanks. Yeah, let's not have-
I'm a V expert
Let's
too,
have a
so
squad.
you know.
I know.
Yeah, you get that, right.
You're just
but-
collecting them. Right?
Yeah. Well, and just a short story I want to tell you is that we arrived at a hotel over in Lisbon, my wife and I, and we were going there. I was speaking at a conference, and when I was there, we checked in, and then one of her cousins came and lived in the UK, came over to Lisbon to visit us while we were there. And when they checked in, they said that they were checking in and that, they wanted a room next to ours. And the hotel clerk said, well, what's the name on the other room? And they said it was Mike Nelson. And the clerk goes, the Mike
The-
Nelson.
Oh,
I have not lived that down with my family ever since.
I
I
think
mean,
that's great.
every time I hear that. it's
Well, and
just-
I'm going to borrow that. So just get ready the next time, that we get together.
awesome.
You're going to be the Mike Nelson. And speaking of MVPs,
oh,
somebody who's trying to become MVP, you've already become MVP of the audio podcast
yeah.
because you've been on so much. And
Yeah.
now you're in town here and you've had
It's
me in
more
studio.
MAP, most annoying person.
You've had me in studio
yeah.
all day today.
I know, it's great.
Recording episodes.
absolutely.
But it's great. I appreciate the idea.
No, it's a blast always hanging out with you.
Yeah, Don Porman, technical
Yeah,
evangelist, knower of many different things
Absolutely.
at a good level of deep hill. That is always very impressive, right? To be
Yeah,
deep
appreciate
and
that, yeah.
to be very wide in what you know. So it's going to be good.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, master of several.
I could bluff my way in.
A smattering.
We'll just call it that.
A master
yeah,
of a
right,
smattering.
right, yeah.
Well, thanks, Ed. We're gonna jump in, and to set this up, I'm gonna hit our stat of the episode. In
Yeah.
this case, the first time I'm doing stats. Stats, multiple of the
Many.
episode, because I was digging around. I was interested. We've known for years and years that IT teams are plagued with working on things that actually don't matter,
Yeah.
but that there are things they have to do. And so I was digging around on that thing they call the internets. One stat: 58% of organizations say their team spends more than 5 hours per week fulfilling repetitive requests for the business. That's
Absolutely.
a natural thing that you have to do. 90% of respondents, manual and repetitive IT tasks contribute to low morale and attrition. Right? People
Absolutely.
What? You don't want to sit here and push that same button
Yes,
every
yes.
7 hours? Come on.
Yeah, and maybe on Lost you have to do
Right,
that.
remember the number thing, right?
But in,
Yeah,
but in
yeah,
IT you don't
right,
have to. And then
right.
and then lastly, 45% of IT teams spend 5 or more hours writing scripts
Yes.
for workflows and automation, which I thought would be
Yeah.
a really interesting
What a great segue. Yeah.
into why we're here and why we're talking about
Yeah.
Fusion.
Yeah.
Mike, your thoughts around those stats, but also take it a little further since this is a place that you've lived in.
Oh yeah, actually, I started out in infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
So I started out as actually on help desk, and I moved my way through system analyst, engineering, architecture, and it back in the early days, if you will, automation wasn't a thing. It was something that it was all manual, repetitive tasks.
Awful.
That people were just like would have to do the same thing, and it's really weird that they still do it today, but there are, industries and enterprises that still do it. But when you get down to the core of what they're trying to do is they're trying to do a repetitive task, but they're trying to do it safely.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're trying to make it as easy as
Yeah.
possible. And there are folks out there that are just, if you remember back then when people were saying, "Oh, you got to learn how to do VB script and you have to
Yeah.
learn how to do batch file scripts,
I
and
remember all
things
those
like
days,
that."
yep.
Way back then, Don. That people were like, it's going to take my job. It's kind of like AI today, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
it's
is.
gonna take my
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
Automation is going to take away my job. No, automation helps your job. And we've taken the steps here at Pure. When I started to join the Fusion program, I immediately saw the advantages of being able to automate a lot of the tasks that infrastructure folks do, not only around the storage platform. I'm talking about the entire infrastructure. I'm talking about expanding it out beyond just storage, beyond just, what we look at traditional storage, because we're starting to get into workflows, we're starting to get into workloads, we're starting to get into all those things. Those statistics that you talk about, though, I bet they're 150% accurate because there are people that still they still use Excel spreadsheets for their IP
For planning
addressing
or
and
IP
their
addressing.
All my IP addresses
Yeah.
are in this tab.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Yeah,
I
right.
also
Yeah.
use Excel
Yeah.
spreadsheets for databases.
Yeah,
Remember that?
yeah.
But some of
Remember,
them
and I think it still happens.
Some of them still do it because they don't know different or they don't want to
Right.
adapt. Like on prior episodes, and
Seems
you have to
complicated,
You have to
right?
go way
Yeah.
back in the archives, but I used to use an example of this guy named Carl, and Carl was a real person. And because we're doing the video,
was
and
a
it's
figment
new
of your
now.
imagination?
It was not a figment of
Okay.
my imagination.
All
It was
right.
actually an IT, a system admin at a customer that I frequently visited in the Pacific Northwest. hefty kind of guy, bearded, belt.
We talked
suspenders,
about Carl.
right.
I remember
We've
you
talked
talking
about
about it, yeah.
Carl, but Carl did not want to learn or understand any of the automation things
Yeah.
because he kept wanting to come into work every day and doing the same
Yeah.
things that were required on those systems. Why are those things required on those systems, DP?
Yeah, well, the only embellishment I wanted to add to Carl was
Yeah.
my vision was his ponytail and a T-shirt that said RTFM on it.
It's possible.
That's probably,
It's possible.
or I think of the comic book guy from The Simpsons, right? That's another
really
possibility,
close.
right?
It's a really
Yeah.
close analog.
Yeah, well, much of it has to revolve around the idea that if you look at legacy storage, if you look at legacy technology, the idea of APIs from a timeline perspective, right, which is the gateway to all this automation,
Yeah.
is APIs are still a relatively newish thing. I say newish because they've been around for a while, but the 800-pound gorillas who dominate the market, they're not reverse engineering a lot of things to put APIs in, right? So many of the legacy platforms out there require scripts, right? Or they require manual button pushing every single day. And you miss pushing that button one day. How does that go for you, right? And I think the concept of automation and this ability to take away mundane tasks is great in concept for them. They'll always say, oh yeah, 75% of IT is keeping the lights on, but I have no way of helping you get there, because they have portfolios of products too, right? You look at legacy providers and they'll tell you they have a portfolio of products, which is simply an aggregation of a couple of things they've bought, but there's no APIs in there. There's no interoperability. And so this nature of being able to automate your tasks is kind of cut off at the beginning, because every single piece of their stuff you have in your data center speaks a different language.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you go so far as to say that the APIs aren't there. A lot
Fair
of
point.
a lot of vendors will mask them, or they will make them private.
They're under
Secret.
the covers,
They're
right?
Correct.
secret.
You
They're
can't,
just
Correct.
for
you
us.
can't access
You
them.
can't have
because they
these.
want you to use their
Yeah.
Their
infrastructure,
proprietary-
That's a really good
proprietary
point.
infrastructure
Yes.
to manage
or their
that.
proprietary tool. And there's
Absolutely.
multiple tools for multiple jobs.
Yep.
And guess
Absolutely.
what? Some of them come with price tags.
That's right.
Absolutely.
You
Right.
actually want to manage that part?
That's
Oh,
right.
okay, here
Yep.
you need to pay up.
Right.
No, that's a very
That's
good
a
point.
good ad. That's a good ad. So it's not that they're not doing APIs as much. They're just abstracting
They're not
them.
exposing
Right,
them.
and
Or
how
not
they're
exposing
leveraging them, right? And I think that's the secret to where we're going to go with this conversation about Fusion and everything.
Yeah.
Well, and we've always been API first, right? I mean,
Love it.
that's one of the mantras that we've always had with. That's why alliance partners love partnering with us.
Yeah.
'Cause it's just really easy to get into the stack and do things that connect into
Two-
technology and make better solutions.
The
for
two
customers.
things that were taught to me when I first got here by one of the smartest guys I know at this company, John Carnes.
Yeah.
He said, we are API first. And when we look at a new function, our first question is, how do we automate it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. I love it.
Well, and Fusion is all about how do we automate it, but at scale,
Correct.
right? Very much at scale. And so we're gonna dig in. And I always hear Fusion, and I go back to that song that has pure energy in it. But I need to
Oh, yeah.
I need to move on
Information
from the
Society. I love
Information
that song.
Society.
Yeah.
pure energy. And I always hear Fusion. That good echoes in my
Oh,
mind.
our
so-
gray hair is showing on
I
that
know,
conversation.
I know. Yeah, that is. Let's do lay of the land, Mike. I'll jump on you first to cover Fusion.
Sure.
Just at a high altitude, really, what are we talking about here for customers? What have we built in? And as you mentioned, there was kind of an iteration first.
That's right.
And we learned some things, right? That's sometimes cool with
I love it.
technology. Is that, well, we tried a thing, and God, there's some areas that we can do better, and now it's better.
Right. So Fusion really is the aspect of thinking about automation at its core level inside of Purity, what we call Purity, which is our operating system.
Yes.
You guys know this, right? It is a core functionality. All right. Now, it's not necessarily just tied to Purity, because we've tied it into other things. But what it does is allows for the ability to take multiple products in our platform and combine them together into what we call fleets.
Yep.
All right. And when you get into an aspect, if you think about this, you get into the aspect of taking things and putting them into bundles and being able to work with those bundles easier when you want to change something, or you want to add something, or you want to remove something. All right. Fusion allows that to happen. and it's all through automation. It's all through the back end. It's all through APIs. Okay, and we talk to other platform APIs. Like Fusion uses Pure One API to talk to what we call Capacity Planner, which gives us recommendations about where we should put things, where volumes should go. All right, where workloads should go. We're also taking something called Fusion First Initiative. The Fusion First Initiative in our engineering division means that when you come up with an idea for something, when you come up with a concept, Fusion has to be in that concept first.
Front and center.
It has to be front
Yeah.
and center in the thoughts that you are putting down on paper or you're presenting to a team. Fusion has to be a part of that. That's mandated.
I love that though.
Yeah, it's
Otherwise you're going to get
absolutely- absolutely.
orphan
It's
capabilities.
just like that API
right?
first thing, right?
Right,
It's like
yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah,
lead with
absolutely.
what we know is the future.
Right,
Right.
Fusion First.
Right. So what Fusion has evolved to be, I mean, originally it was just it was the idea of being able to provision things like volumes and hosts and things like that amongst
Yeah.
other arrays
At
or
its core
other
level, right?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. At its core level. It's evolved now to the point that it's actually the centralized automation engine, as we call it, within the platform, the entire Pure platform. So we have multiple things now. We have FlashBlade, we have FlashArray, we have Pure One that are all using the components of Fusion to do things to help, with automation. And that's the core functionality of it.
Intelligent control plane.
And it's not
Yeah.
just limited, just to add a little bit of an embellishment there, it's not just the physical ones, right? It's not the flash arrays and the flash blades, our cloud offerings as well, the Pure Storage Cloud dedicated offerings that we have this Fusion thing in there as well.
Edge to core to cloud, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
right,
and-
Where
exactly.
we go with it.
And the thing is that I always, I leave that out just because I always think of our cloud stuff. It's just our stuff in
It's
the cloud,
operating
right?
system.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just
yeah.
Just there,
happens to
man. Right. Yeah, I get
be
it.
another
Yeah.
place, right?
And
It's
I-
not a destination. It's just a connection point.
Right.
And I know the product people, and especially a couple of them would be like, you got to talk about this, but it's all part of.
It's connected.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, and it's part of the platform, and that's what I focus on as more of the entire platform of it rather than individual products. So.
Well, and extending it, it's really about taking the workloads that our customers are looking to run
Yeah.
and optimizing how they do that, but applying policy
Exactly.
as well to what the requirements are, because maybe different workloads have different
Well,
requirements.
and we
right?
couldn't have done that. We couldn't have done that unless we moved that control plane locally.
Correct.
Unless we moved it into the
Right.
data center.
Right.
If we would have kept that control plane like we had it in the earlier Rev
Mhm.
in the cloud, we wouldn't have been able to do those things.
Yeah.
So moving it into the data center actually was, it basically turned on switches that were like, yeah, we can do this now. We can do this. We can do this.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of taken off from there.
Yeah.
It has. It's super exciting. DP, what's the starting point, right? I mean, obviously there's some requirements to get started. It's not like, I'm running an array and I'm on a, older version of Purity. I can
Well,
just
it's not as
flip
tough as
the
you think to start,
switch.
right? It's not
Yeah.
as tough as you think to start,
Okay.
right? In true Pure fashion, Fusion is an included part of Purity.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest, I would think, biggest barrier to entry is making sure you're at the correct version of Purity on
Mm-hmm.
your FlashBlade or your Flash Array. Let me look at the numbers so I make sure that I've got them right. It's
Yep.
Purity version 6.81 and
Yep.
higher, and 4.5.6 for FlashBlade.
That's correct.
Now, getting there is a concept that we are working to better explain through community, through Adopt and Expand, and all of that. That NDUs,
Yeah.
right? Like the nature of our upgrade process of getting Fusion upgraded on your array is not what it used to be with legacy providers. I just put a blog out on community about this,
Yeah.
right? Because we're all terrified as storage administrators to upgrade our operating systems. And it's because the legacy hangover of stateful components and firmware and storage operating system kernels that are 30 years old, right? That's a very dicey proposition, and we completely understand that. But the nature of how Purity has been developed and its role in the storage operating system and stateless components and everything, it's not meant to be as scary and dicey as it is with our approach to it, right? It should be as simple as updating an iPhone.
Yeah.
I might be oversimplifying it to some degree, but we don't want it to be this terrifying, disruptive thing where, oh my God, this one controller didn't take the upgrade and now I got to drop ship one in from the supply to put it in. That's a real story that
and-
happened to me.
Yeah, that just turns into a bad weekend.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
just-
Yeah.
that's-
That was in a data center in Virginia in the middle of a storm, a snowstorm at 3 a.m. when that happened, and that's why I wrote the blog, because I can understand. Listen, yeah, I get it. It's hard to wrap your head around being safe in your upgrade, right? But with what we've done with Purity, it's worth looking into. Hey, man, it's a twice a year thing.
Yeah.
So, long story short, the version of Purity really drives what
yeah,
Fusion is doing and where it is.
Right. The version of Purity is tied to actually being able to flip the switches and turn the knobs to do things with Fusion, because Fusion by default, when you install those versions, it's on.
Yeah.
It's enabled.
Yeah.
You'll see a thing that's called Fleet. That'll just automatically show up.
And it's not a light switch. It's not
Oh,
like
no.
you have to choose.
No,
Yeah.
nope.
Much like some of our other features, safe mode
just
snapshots
there.
and things
Right.
where we kind of we know you want this.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's on by default.
Yep. It's automatically
However,
there.
people get nervous. Turn
Yes.
things on by default.
That's
Are
right.
you consuming resources for
Yes.
me?
Right.
What's going on there?
No, and
Yeah.
I'll give you a little peek under the covers. When you take a look at Fusion, Fusion is just it's part of the core functionality of Purity, but it's not part of the operating system. It's not actually embedded into the OS. It's actually a component that lives outside the OS.
Okay.
All right, but it runs as a container. Okay, and it provides services to that operating system. So if Fusion were to fail, okay, it's not going to affect the
Core OS is still
operating
running.
system
Yeah.
Yeah.
running on the array. All right, and they did that specifically because they didn't want that disruption if anything were to happen. And we're building that into other things as well that are coming
Sure.
down the pipe here.
Cleverly designed.
Yeah, actually, when you take a look at Fusion from the standpoint of being able to enable it and get it up and running, literally it's 3 clicks. It's 3 mouse clicks
It
to
is.
get that up and running.
Yeah.
And to me, that is like a no-brainer. It's right. I have the ability to do remote provisioning. I have a single pane of glass. I know, cliche, but you really do have a single pane of glass
Yeah, you do.
into all of your infrastructure, your storage infrastructure, and you can allocate things. You can, create volumes, create hosts, connect them, and not have to log into every array and not have to take all these other steps to do things.
Write a bunch of commands or go
Yeah,
through tons
absolutely.
or a 250
Absolutely.
page.
Human
Manual,
human
right?
derivative things that are fraught with error, right?
Well, yeah, and
the
that's
other
it.
one,
And,
right?
and I always love that we have just these few steps. Like when I started here, we were just coming out with our sync replication
Right.
product, Active Cluster.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I know how other ones worked and the complexity of getting that up and running. And I remember running into Larry,
Yeah.
who actually is at the heart of Fusion here as well. I go, Larry, how does this work? I live in the database space and people are going to want to use this sync rep stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just 4 steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, come on.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, it's just 4 steps.
And you've been exposed to some of the legacy stuff,
Yeah,
right? Like
we've
I
got it down
have
to
too
3.
in a
Legacy
free.
stuff.
We got a 3.
And now you got to
Yeah,
3 for Fusion.
in previous life, 3 was just wrapping your head around the other 27 you had to go through with their stuff, right?
Rule of 3, which is really.
I want to
good.
go back to a real quick point.
Yeah.
And he touched on it a little bit, and I think it's important to understand that this is like Fusion is not a federation thing. We are not using it as a way to aggregate disparate functionality
Oh,
together
no,
and make
no.
it look like one motion, right? This is literally a unification of array functionality and data management functionality across the portfolio.
It's inclusive,
It
right?
is. It's conclusive because the APIs are very similar, if not identical, in many cases. And that's the point of Fusion is that yes, it's a elevated control plane, but it's a unified control plane at that, right? So that I think that's a big differentiator because anybody who comes out and tells you, well, I've got a control plane too, it's like, well, behind the scenes you've just cobbled together a couple of different systems together. former company of mine several years ago came out with something like that they tried to make people pay for, and
Yep.
it was very broken and it didn't work very well.
Yeah.
So, and it was only to federate. It wasn't to unify.
Right. And we also have another one out there today that actually talks about, you have to have this extra machine,
Right.
this extra
Right.
thing,
A
that
management
sits
stack.
there.
You
I
need
want
your
this,
own
but I have to
management
buy
stack,
this
right?
extra.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
We'll sell it to you.
the old bolt-on. Yeah,
Right.
We know you have a mobile phone, but you need
Right.
a pager.
You need this
to get
too.
notified
Right,
when someone's calling you
Right.
on your
Yeah.
mobile
Right,
phone.
exactly.
Why don't you do that? Oh, so dig into those 3 steps further. Okay, let's role play. I'm customer X.
Sure.
I'm on the right version of Purity.
Sure.
I'm really interested in exploring Fusion. How do I get started? What do I do?
Well, the
take
first
me
thing,
through it.
the first thing I would say, welcome to Pure, customer X.
Yeah.
All right. No, actually, it's really as simple. So you're in the UI.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's actually the fleet. You click on the fleet, and you given 2 options: create a fleet
Okay.
or join a fleet.
Okay.
All right. So you click on create a fleet. You give the fleet a name, and you click create, and that is Fusion.
That's it.
That is right there. You have
Yeah.
just created your fleet. Now it's a
Okay.
fleet of 1 array.
Sure.
So now you go to the other array.
Fleets
the
are
second
happier
array.
when they have
That's
other
right.
arrays.
They're
to
social
hang out with
creatures.
them.
It's a
They are.
family
They're social
thing, you know?
creatures.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got to spread the love. And what we do is we go to this next array and we say, okay, we want to join a fleet. Instead of creating a fleet, you want to join one. We go back to the original array. Because of security, we have to create what's called a fleet key.
Okay.
And that fleet key is an encrypted key that allows for that communication to happen between the 2 arrays and kind of marry them, if you will, into the fleet. So you go back to the array, the second array, put in that fleet key, click join, and guess what? Now you've got a fleet of 2 arrays. Fusion is running. You can do anything you want from remote provisioning, volume creation, host creation, and even start getting into presets and workloads.
All right. Well, let's go into presets and workloads.
Oh,
So I mean,
awesome.
I'm excited about it all, but that's the part when it really starts taking off for me.
Yeah.
Is when because at the end of the day, look,
It's the practical application of it,
our
right? Yeah.
users are running workloads
Well,
to
and I think
support
that,
business functions,
right?
right?
And
So-
real quickly, that plays into everything that we've been talking about. That this is not a storage management thing. This is data management, right?
Yeah.
And data management is
workflow
driven by
management.
workflows and
Yes.
workloads and all of that stuff. So
Yeah, and that's a good point, Don. You just said that there's workflows and workloads.
Correct.
That's been a point of discussion around here at Pure. Well, be honest.
That's good for
being a little
semantics.
bit transparent.
Well, yeah.
Because even
what's
in
a use case? What's a solution?
Yeah,
Right,
right,
there's
yeah,
all
yeah,
those
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
things,
yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, it's you get a lot of people involved in a decision. You get all kinds of different ideas.
Yeah.
And some of them aren't so good. Some are good. Some are not. Anyways, when you get down to it, you get into presets and workloads. You're talking about actual workload. Not we don't want to say workload mobility.
Okay.
All right. What we're talking about is the actual creation of a outcome provisioning.
Yeah.
All right. So we're basing provisioning on outcomes. How do you want that to be, that workload to be provisioned within your fleet?
To meet certain SLAs or end
Right.
user requirements,
to meet compliance, to meet SLAs, to meet
performance,
performance.
capacity.
yes, capacity,
Okay.
all the way down to like IOPS, all the way down
But
to
you have
bandwidth, all the
options
way.
to
Absolutely.
flip
We-
those.
Yeah, we call them parameters, right?
Ah,
so
okay.
we create a preset.
I've learned something.
Yeah, we create a preset. That preset is, if you think about it, in other aspects of IT, preset could be considered a template, all right, or a policy.
Yep.
Right. But the preset can be either prescriptive or it can be customized. So if we create a prescriptive preset, it's a preset that actually contains everything that you want that workload to be, in terms of what the naming is, how many volumes, what the size of the volumes, what the IOPS are, what the bandwidth is, what the replication schedule is, what the snapshot schedule is, all that. And it's all defined within that preset. All right. That's prescriptive because you're not allowing any variation to that. Now you can do customizable where you allow freeform. You basically say, this is the name of the preset. This is maybe the name of the volume, but you have free reign to do anything else you want. You can create whatever sizes you want, whatever number of volumes you want, so on and so forth. So we give that flexibility to do that. Now, think about it from an IT perspective. You might have a large enterprise that's very siloed, where you have storage people and you have network people and you have database people. These database people don't know anything about storage, don't care about storage, except if, as long as their databases have enough
Except
room.
when it slows down or runs
Yeah,
out of
exactly,
capacity.
exactly,
Yeah.
right?
And then the
So-
phone rings.
Right.
Or
So-
the pager goes off.
Yeah.
Right. So what's the optimal thing for them?
Yeah.
If they go and request storage, prescriptive, right? Because they don't know anything about it.
Just give me.
They don't. Yeah, just give me,
Yeah.
right? But when you have a smaller organization, maybe, and that smaller organization is maybe you have a person that's wearing multiple hats, that wears 5 hats. That's also a database person, but also a help desk person, and also, involved in networking a little
Yep.
bit, and does the server work, and does this and does that. They want some customization because they know what they're doing. They actually have a little bit of game, in play in the game. So we allow that flexibility. And by doing that, you take those presets, which are mobile, by the way. So you can take those presets, export them,
Apply
and put
them.
them on
Yeah.
any other fleet that you would create, and you'd be able to use them. And then actually apply them to a workload, deploy a workload. And you can have that deployment workload just set for, DBAs can deploy this workload and whatever policies you want to set around that. But then they just go in and they say they want to deploy that workload, and Fusion takes care of all of it.
You know what's fun that I hear about this? Maybe fun's not the right word. The aha is that we're effectively helping IT people become strategists as opposed to tacticians.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's
That's a good analogy.
right. So that's just what, as you went through that description, I'm thinking of what's more fun for somebody who likes doing IT work.
Yeah.
Is sitting at a terminal and writing scripts or fixing things or doing that, or is it sitting and thinking about what you just walked, like, okay, the database team needs this.
Yeah.
Okay, how do I now deploy Fusion and set it up to make, okay, and then I have this business unit that has these demands, and I can go. It just sounds
But think about
more
that.
strategic. It's enlightening, right?
Right. It's enlightening, but actually think about what's happening in the background. It's automation that's freeing you
Right, well,
to
and
be
then-
more to think about.
Yeah, the
these
initial
things.
is the
Yeah.
think part, and then you get it set up and run. And again, over time, you can adjust if you
Yeah.
need to, but you have those templates, you have those presets set up, or you have those policies
Right.
that apply across
It's
the
the
board.
nirvana that IT has always wanted,
they've
which we want to
always-
be
yeah.
proactive, right?
Right,
We want to
right.
be where the puck is going, to borrow from Wayne Gretzky, right? But forever and ever, because of the limits of legacy technology and certain mindsets, it's always been reactive.
Right.
And I think that's probably one of the more exciting challenges we face as Pure is getting out there in the customer base and prospect base and saying, look, we can help you get to being proactive.
Right.
You gotta really lean in with us on this, but we do have the right tools. That's the nature behind the platform, right? And that's the nature behind the journey to the enterprise data cloud as an experience, right? That we've got to take some steps to get there, but you come along with the journey. We will help you become proactive instead of continually complaining about how 75% of my time is keeping
Do
the
you
lights
want
on.
to be firefighting, or do
Right.
you want to clear the
Right.
brush so that the
Right.
fires never
Right.
happen?
And I think
right?
it's important to remember what you're just talking about, Don, is that the enterprise data cloud, we were just talking about this earlier, the EDC, as we call it,
Yeah.
doesn't belong to Pure.
No.
It belongs to you. It
No,
belongs to the IT. It belongs to the
It's
data
your
center.
experience.
We are
It's
helping
your
organizations
Yep.
Absolutely.
experience
Yep.
an enterprise data cloud. We're not selling an enterprise
No.
data cloud. We're
There's
not
no SKU.
trying to. There's
No.
no SKU. There's no part number. There's no magic product.
There's no
called
SKU for
the
platform either. I
EDC,
mean, it's just
but
there, right?
It is like this is a way of thinking. This is a method of operating that will free up people
Yeah.
to do things more strategically, to think more as IT strategists.
And if you think about
right?
it, up until this point, much of legacy technology has been about just addressing tech debt and everything in a single backwards looking way of doing things, right?
Sure.
People needed to do this now. Okay, here's dedupe, right? Here's compression. In the case that we're doing here is we're saying, listen, this isn't about addressing tech debt. This is about addressing the fact that everybody's been complaining for 20 years about a very specific problem, and we're putting things in motion to help you get there.
But you know what we're not talking about here?
What's that?
Neither of you gentlemen have mentioned the word storage. Right? That's the part that's really
I-
fascinating.
listen,
At a storage
I-
company,
yeah.
all we're doing is talking up at the
It's
we're gonna
even in
help
our
you
name, right? I mean,
deploy
I
and
get
run
it. It's-
workloads and
yeah,
set
it's
up
in our name.
policy and operate more intelligently. But unlike, in many cases, our competitors, We're not sitting here going, oh yeah, you need to deploy this storage array.
I've
and then
been
do
I've
these
been a little
things. It's-
controversial in some of the things I've written and talked about. In that,
Oh,
listen,
no, say it's not so.
I know I'm
Doc.
not controversial, but and I know I'm probably going to take some heat for this from
part of
some
your
people,
team to be
but I
controversial. Have an opinion. have a take.
Listen, I respect the word array. I respect all of the things that go into enterprise storage between SANs and NAS
It's
and all
super
of
cool.
that stuff, right?
Storage is good.
I've strayed away from calling them arrays. I really struggle to write the word array next to flash array, which is in the name.
Yeah, wow.
But the idea there is these are just endpoints. These are endpoints for data. That's all it really is from the perspective that we're pushing here, right? And I think it's fair to say the old way of thinking of it with arrays and storage and silos and I need 25 terabytes of this operating at this speed. Sure, do that all day long if you want. But if you want to be strategic, if you want to be ready for the thing that's coming after AI, you kind of have to change your mentality and become strategic. And this
Well,
is the tool that helps you get
Timing
there.
of this relative to AI is very fantastic.
I would say that AI is just the new data lake, right? Or it's the new cloud. Or I'm not saying that it's not important, but there will be things after AI too
Sure.
that you have to be ready for.
Well, and to take this a little bit further is when we talk, we haven't mentioned, the storage thing, right? Like you said.
Yeah.
And we've taken it beyond that because we look at it holistically across the entire infrastructure.
It's end
If we start talking about, what we're working on with Pure One, with the workflow orchestration, that component of it, storage is just one very small piece of that. I mean, we're talking everything from the actual CMDB and ticketing system of support, going down through, having actual policies or recipes, created around what the workload is. I mean, down to the core level of is it SQL? Is it Oracle? Is it this?
We showed
Is
that
it
demo
that?
at Accelerate, right?
Right,
So, I mean, the
right.
demo that Matt Bradford did at Accelerate
That was a killer demo.
about setting up a SQL workload, and it
Exactly.
tuned into
Yeah.
ServiceNow, and it had Slack alerts, and it was just all
But
automated.
you know what's behind
right?
all that? Fusion.
Fusion is.
Fusion
yeah.
is driving all
It
of
is your
that
absolute
automation.
hub.
And even the remember feedback loops? Remember we were talking
Yeah.
we were just
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah,
this
we
over the
talked about
last
that
few
the other
days
day.
about
Yeah.
feedback loops. It actually does the entire loop. It's like a
Right.
CI/DC pipeline for the developers out there that are listening. They understand what that is. It comes back and it goes through feedback. We do the same thing with that, with the orchestration, because actually after the thing is, the thing, whatever they wanted actually deployed, it actually does the loop and comes
Yeah.
all the way back to the ticketing system and says, hey, this has been done. Are you good with it? Check the box or click OK, or if something's
But
wrong.
it's better to
let's
get
hit
that
'em.
loop to go, I did this thing,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
over time, it's going to do more than that. You're just going to get alerts and say, I did this thing, not check with me. I mean, you can do that now too, but
Right. But it's the
but
whole
it's-
concept
it's-
of having that from start to finish, because we've never had that. It's always been
Yeah.
a kind of a black hole, is that I go out and request, storage. I could DBA. I could say, I need more storage for my databases. Give me more storage. And then finally the storage guys will be like, oh yeah, you got that storage. Go ahead and
Here you
this
go.
is
And
it.
that's
is,
like
yeah.
4 weeks later. too.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you're waiting,
yeah.
wait,
Yeah.
right?
There's no SLAs around it. There's
Yeah.
nothing. It's and you have no actual feedback. You don't even know what's there. Maybe you don't care, but at the same time, there were people who are like, why is my storage running so slow? Well, because you didn't really, specify this, that, or the other thing, or
Right.
the storage guys thought that, you don't need that. But this whole workflow thing actually simplifies that, and it makes it more streamlined. And I think it's actually better for the person that's actually the end user or the requester, if you will. Maybe they're not the end
It's
user.
less frustrating.
It's more
Yeah.
predictable.
Yeah. It's predictable, less frustrating, and you're informed,
Right.
right, throughout.
But it can hit
On that loop.
every part of
Sure.
infrastructure.
Sure.
Every part. It doesn't have to be just storage. I mean,
And
maybe you need a server. Maybe it's going to go
Yeah.
out and it's going to do something automated with VMware or Hyper-V or something like that, and create a server, and then it's going to do everything for you.
Yeah,
and it's a demonstration of something we talked about earlier related to being API first, right? When I talked to people at Supercomputing last year and I said, we're API first. Everybody's like, really? And it's not that like we do API first because it's cool or it's the modern way of doing things. It's the recognition
Well, we kinda
that,
do.
well, we're kind of cool. We are cool.
Yeah.
But it's the recognition that we're only one part of a giant piece of machinery, right? And for the longest time, legacy storage has always been, I'm the most important person in the room. Everybody will come to me and bow before me with their burnt offerings, and I will allow you to get whatever you
It's funny,
want.
when I was with servers, I treated it the same way. As servers.
Right. Yeah. Right. So,
What do you forget that storage
right.
stuff?
And I
We're the
think
processing power.
right. You can't have storage without processing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. From our perspective, though, I think it's a humble understanding that we're only one part of a bigger piece of machinery, right?
Yeah.
And we have to enable ourselves to not just be API first, but encourage workflow automation, encourage these bigger things that are going to exist outside of our ecosystem, but we can integrate in just fine. And you will be happier on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Because it gave you that feedback loop, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of feedback loops, we get feedback from customers.
Yeah.
Talk about a happy customer that's using this thing.
Oh,
We
yeah,
get our
absolutely.
Fanatics, get our fanatics in.
Oh, yeah,
Let's
yeah,
chat about
yeah.
those guys because they were out with us talking on with us.
That's right.
About this.
That's right. That's right. They were really excited about it because number one, they didn't necessarily need, some of the more advanced features of presets and workloads right off the bat, right?
Yeah.
So they're going into it from an aspect of being new to it, but they're deploying a new data center. Their example was we need to put a data center in or near Dallas area. We've got a couple that are located, one in the UK. We've got 3 or 4 here in the US. And now we're adding a new one. So what is the easiest way for us to be able to manage all of these arrays once we get them established, or manage all of our storage in a simple fashion through a single pane of glass, but also be able to configure everything and change configuration and be able to create hosts that can be accessed from anywhere and things like that. Fusion just kind of fit that bill. Right. They were really excited to be able to not have to connect to the UK arrays just to change a DNS server,
right.
or do something like that.
Simple things like
Right.
that.
It's just the simple things because that involved time and resources to do that. Right. It's not something
and
that
it's
you
not
can.
value add.
No,
Right?
no, it's not. It's one of those things that you're just like, God, I got to do
I
this.
have to
You
go
know?
Time to make the donuts to
Yeah.
pull back from
That's right.
long ago reference, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. And we even took it a step further. I gotta make a shout out to one of the engineers that actually was the brainchild behind Fusion. His name is Brent Lim. He's a genius. He's just an absolute genius. I love the guy. And he did the presentation with me and Chris from Fanatics. And the thing was is that he and I put together this Ansible thing. And anybody who uses automation, you're going to use a tool like Ansible. You're
Yep.
going to use Terraform, PowerShell, whatever you would use. And we've taken Ansible and we actually showed him how he could use that tool, which is a full-scale automation tool that will actually take that new array, put it in place, plug it in, just make the cable plugs, all right, power it on, and Ansible is going to go out and configure that array any way you want. And it's going to make it the same as it is across the fleet. All right, so it's going to have the same settings. It's going to have everything that's the same. We showed him that demonstration, and he was just like, if we can do this for every data center that we bring up, because they plan on bringing up multiple data centers over the next 3 years, he's like, we can do this. It's paid for itself. It's something that he says, I have to have this.
100%.
Because he spends so much manpower just putting people into data centers to do these things and to connect to these and make sure that, if something goes wrong, they can't see it on their end. They have to have somebody there, but now he can do that.
Yeah.
And that to him was like night and day. It was really advantageous.
Super exciting. Great to hear that actual story.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
related
great
to
have
one
them.
of my favorite off-brand cloud providers, not one of the big three. The reason I used them as a cloud provider was something very similar. They blogged their progress on how they built out new data centers because, when I was in the virtualization space, all that stuff was really interesting. And they had an entire blog on how they know now how to deploy just a series of servers. Like they used Toronto as the example.
Yeah.
They sent it to Toronto and all they had to do was pixie boot and point to an IP address and everything took it from there. Nobody clicked any buttons at all. And it's a very similar story.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what you want to get to.
And to be honest, our competitors, some of our competitors, it's kind of like going in for dental surgery to get them to get them to be able to, be able to mimic an array, to be able to make
Yeah.
it standardized, to make it in compliance. It really is difficult to do.
Michael, what are some beats on where we're going? Things that we can talk about that are not private.
I know
on the
some of those.
roadmap,
I know some of
but
those. I'm gonna let him
Oh,
talk
what
though.
are-
I'm
what are
some-
there's some stuff
what are some
coming
aspects
that's mind blowing.
development
See,
wise
this
that we
is the
can at least
hard
talk to?
part,
Right.
Rob. This is
Yeah.
really the hard part because you know it as it is. We're involved in meetings and things like that,
Yeah.
and people say things, and you don't know whether it's going to be public or not.
Well,
And
we
whether
can hold off it then.
I-
We can.
No,
I
no,
can
no,
take
that's
you
okay.
right to the hot takes.
No.
segment.
How about the
Yeah.
art of the possible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a good one?
Let's
Imagine
Let's
if.
approach it that way. How about we do it? That?
Imagine if.
What feedback have we gotten from customers
Yeah.
about features or capability improvements that we are evaluating?
Okay,
good one.
so I
How's
can-
that? That's
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
That's a good
That's a
one.
better way
That's
to say
safe.
it than to
That's
use the
very
R
safe.
word.
I
Absolutely.
like that.
Absolutely.
Safe.
Roadmap.
Yeah, we
I
don't
can
say
tell you
roadmap.
that there are improvements that are coming for things like authentication. Authentication
Mm-hmm.
is a big thing because you have to think about it when you have from a security and compliance standpoint. You need to connect to an array. That's an authentication thing.
Yeah.
It's a security
Yeah.
thing. Your data is on that array. You want to control what is accessing that array. So we've introduced in the initial introduction of Fusion, we introduced having LDAP because you have to have an LDAP connection in order to have arrays be able to talk to each other and authenticate to each other via tokens. But we're introducing new ways to authenticate. We're introducing industry standard ways, more industry standard ways to do that. Okay, via SAML, via SSO, all those things. That is something that customers come to us all the time about. They're like, hey, we don't want to use LDAP. We don't want to use Active Directory.
Give us something
We wanna
else.
Give us something else.
Sure.
Give us the flexibility. The other thing is observability.
Okay.
All right. Being able to collect metrics from all the arrays within a fleet, being able to combine them and bring them down to a common platform where they can see their actual performance statistics and see what is actually happening within their fleet. All right, within their storage environment. We have things that are coming that will allow that. And there's some really exciting things that I've seen that are further down the road, but they're going to be really cool in terms of being able to visualize that. Being able to,
Yeah.
because you know how some C levels really like their really pretty colors and graphs.
Yeah, sure.
and
Need
things
my
like that.
dashboard.
Graphs
Yeah,
and charts.
exactly,
Give me a
exactly.
dashboard. Maybe a metrics.
Right. And we've had some customers that have made some fantastic metrics, correlation type of things. Shout out to Anthony Nocentino.
Yeah.
He created a thing that does database and data collection from arrays and from the databases. Fantastic. Customers love that. And the customers have made the things themselves. They come to us and they say, can you integrate that? And we're like, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
All right. It's going to take us a little bit, but we can do that.
Love it.
Right. We've also are taking steps towards expanding, like I said, AI. So, we have a thing called Copilot, which is, in personal opinion, I think it's a bad name, but it kind of confuses people, but it's AI, right?
Yeah.
And we have AI in
It's an
Pure.
LLM tied back into
Right.
data that's in Pure
Exactly.
One.
It's not
Let's
Microsoft.
talk about
It's
that.
not Microsoft's
okay?
thing, right?
So you're
Yeah.
not confusing
right.
my-
Yeah.
Right.
Let me just translate for everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob.
You got it. That's what I'm here for.
But the thing is about it is that right now we talk to Pure One, and Pure One has these things called Capacity Planner, right? So as part of presets and workloads, you can click the Get Recommendations. When you click that Get Recommendations of where a workload should go within the fleet, it goes out to Pure One, says, hey, take a look at these fleet of arrays. Tell us what the best ones are. Tell us what the in ranking order, which one you would place this workload on. You can do that today with Fusion. So it brings back that from the API, and you select the array you want to put it on, and you do that. We're going to go beyond that. We're actually going to start incorporating some of the Copilot features that we have, where you can actually talk to the array, talk to the fleet as a whole,
Yep.
and being able to, do the things that we did demo at Accelerate.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go any further with that because
that's
I
good.
might be
No,
breaking
You gave us a
some
few
rules.
nuggets
But
there,
there's
which
but
is
there's
great.
a, there's
Those
an
are good few
existential
nuggets.
question that comes about when you start talking about AI managing things and being able to interact with AI and in a natural language way. And this was a conversation that came up when we were Accelerate was if you start to realize that you're interacting with your technology via command line or via voice to an AI thing, how long does the GUI stick around?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I have
It's
to.
theoretical and down the line,
Except
of
for
course.
those customers and user group
Oh.
meetings who have told me
But
straight
I
up,
like my
I
button.
like GUI.
I like my button I
Hardcore.
push.
Right? There's hardcore GUI people,
Hardcore.
and that's fine.
That's why I gave up Unix and went to Windows NT. Was I'm not typing things here. I'm going
Back
to
in
push
74,
buttons. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think I was driving a Pinto back then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. We got to rip into the hot take segment because we're running a tad long,
Okay.
but it's been very meaty, which I like.
Meaty.
And,
Right.
and we've been overdue
I'm
in
glad to
getting
provide that. meat.
all this meatiness about
You're a meaty
fusion
kind of guy.
out
Meaty Mike.
here. So Don knows the drill.
Yep.
Mike, the deal is I've got a few questions I've
I'm a
been
noob.
asking
Yep.
attendees of the podcast, guests on every one, because
All
it
right.
provides a common segmentation,
agree.
which people come to expect and like. We've got three. We're not going to each do them. We're just going to go one by one. You're going to
got
get
it.
the middle one. So
All right.
you're going to get a what's your favorite customer screw up. So start thinking about a story now, and I'm going to hit DP
Yeah.
on a trend or an industry shift
Yeah.
that you think more IT folks should be paying attention to.
All right, IT folks.
And you can't
that's-
say AI. 'Cause
Well,
everybody says
I'm gonna
AI.
use AI as a springboard. Okay.
as long as you go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm going to go somewhere else, and it's going to
Don't
be
go
in a
crypto.
direction. It's going to be in a direction that
Blockchain.
that I'm very interested in leaning in a little bit more on. That we know that AI, the strength of AI, comes through the processing that's done
Yeah.
to do what it needs to do, right? And NVIDIA's leading because they're masters at parallel processing. But it's related to some of the work that I've done in EDA, where we also know that there's a challenge as processors are designed that we're running out of room at the bottom on how small transistors can be,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And with that in mind and understanding, parallel processing that goes into inference and model building and everything, what do we do when we run out of bottom? When we run out of space at the bottom? This is where I lean into quantum computing.
I knew you were going there.
I follow Rigetti. I follow Google's
It's
efforts.
gonna happen, It has to.
In my lifetime, I hope it does
It has
because
to,
I
though,
really
'cause we're
want to
running-
see
We're
it.
running out of the ability to do
And
things
the
with
original,
transistors, right?
right, and the original, at least the original workloads that I looked at, that quantum computing was really interesting to me was cryptography, right? Anything
Sure.
that involves a lot of mathematical calculations, and they always have benchmarks that come out that blow your mind. Like Rigetti came out with something that said we took something that would take 10,000 years, and I'm spitballing here, it's 10,000 years, and we reduced it to 4 hours. That's the kind of leap that is going to happen when it shows up. Now, will it happen tomorrow? No, I doubt it. But
People should keep an eye on it.
but I want to
basically.
keep an eye
Yeah,
on it
okay.
because it's fascinating to me that at some point, like I said, we're going to run out of room at the bottom on how small transistors can get. Right now, a transistor and a processor is 200 nanometers wide. The width of a strand of human DNA is
human-
250
human hair
nano.
and cut it 100,000
Dude,
times or
dude,
whatever, right?
DNA
And
is
it's one of
250
those.
nanometers
Right,
wide. So
yeah.
we are really close to atomic
Yeah.
levels. So.
And something will come along because I've hit these inflection points before where it's like, oh,
Bound
we can't go past 1 micrometer. We
Yep.
can't, and then something
You
else.
saw it with rotation
Something
speeds
else
on hard
comes.
disks,
Yeah.
right? We're not going
Yeah, yeah.
past 15K. The power doesn't justify it,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, something else will come along. That's great. All right, Nelson, you're on the hook now.
All right. So
Screw up story. It could be
Screw up
you, could
time.
be someone else, but
Well,
something.
I'm going to redact some of the names.
The names will- yes.
Yeah. So because they're innocent until
person
proven
A
guilty.
and person B.
So working with actually this is a Fortune 500 company, and this is back in the early 2000s, and that's when they were running a huge VMware infrastructure. Actually, it was I think it was still on 351, back in the VMware days.
Ooh.
Yeah, 351 or 4 or something like that. But what they were doing was, and they were actually they were taking storage data. I shouldn't say storage. They were taking data, VMs, volumes, disks, if you will, and they were needing to migrate them because they were opening another data center. They built a brand new data center, and they were migrating between the two data centers. Now, back in the early days with vCenter and stuff, migrations were kind of hit or miss,
Mhm.
right? vMotion was a really cool thing, but it didn't necessarily mean that, things were going to go really well.
It was going to be successful, right?
Yeah, yeah. So this number always sticks in my head when I think about this because this is the number that was drilled into my head after for the RCA, the root cause analysis
Mhm.
of the disaster or whatever you want to call it. But 1292 and 1292 was 1,292 miles between data centers.
Ah, yeah. I know
Yeah.
where this is going.
So you know where this is
I
going.
know where this is
Okay.
going.
So the thing about it is you can kind of figure out where it's going, but basically migrating the data, it was a weekend thing. We were trying to do it, and it was actually a week-long thing because VMs obviously calculating out all the transfer rates and everything else. It turned out that it would take a week to actually transfer these things. But we started on the weekend, and it went south right away.
Yeah.
It basically, with the first couple of migrations, we were talking, I think we were only talking like 50 or 60 VMs and their disks. It wasn't anything big. We weren't talking thousands. We weren't talking anything like that. But it went south pretty quickly, right? And the thing that I found out, the hardest lesson that I learned from it, obviously it went south. The 1 week turned into 3.5 weeks, eventually getting things over. But the hard lesson is when you have a customer that sits in a meeting with you and you're doing RCA, it's an RCA meeting, and everybody who's done an RCA meeting, you don't want to be the person that they are talking to
No.
when they're talking about the bad things.
Directly, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But like I said, 1292 was drilled into my head during that meeting. But also what was drilled into my head to that meeting was a number of 1.4 million. And I was like, okay, so a person at this company says, do you understand the concept of $1.4 million? And I said, absolutely, I understand that concept. And he said, do you understand what it's like to lose $1.4 million in revenue? And I said, absolutely, I understand what that means. He says, I don't think you do. I don't think you understand what it means to lose $1.4 million per second of downtime.
Oof.
And I
He
was
left
like,
us hanging out there.
Oof.
I was like,
Oh, wow.
I stood silent.
Yeah.
And I got the next 15 minutes of an explanation of how a rolling effect,
Mm-hmm.
a snowball effect, if you will,
Yeah.
what happens when something like that happens to manufacturing systems and RFID systems and distribution
Yeah.
systems
You're down, you're
and
down.
Woof.
Yeah.
door security
rough.
systems.
That is
and-
rough.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so that was a really bad day.
Yeah.
But, I learned a lot from it.
Sure.
Really did. I was only one member of a team of people that were involved in this. So I say he was talking directly to me. He wasn't. He was talking actually to the entire team. But I felt like he was talking to me because he had that,
Mm-hmm.
his
Well,
eyes were burning right through me.
$1.4 million a minute. Was that a resume generating event or?
Yeah, for a few folks, yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely was.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would imagine. All right. Thanks for
Did
sharing
you give them the move that Kramer gave in Seinfeld? Well, you could just write it off. Just write it off. It's 1.4 million. Write it off. You don't even know what a write off is. Yeah, just write it off.
I just, to be honest with you, I couldn't grasp the concept
It's the gravity.
of
the impact.
and the
Yeah.
gravity
Oh,
of it.
yeah.
I had no idea. I mean, I thought, when you have downtime,
Yeah.
maybe it was, you had when you look at it from a monetary standpoint, maybe it was a couple $100,000,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
something like
1.4
that.
million.
But when they come to the table and they have the facts and figures telling you it's that much, you're just like, and I'm not going to swear here, but holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I had no idea. I had no idea.
DP, take us home.
What
Go
am I
back-
doing?
Go back to young DP.
Young DP.
Go back to DP.
That was
20
way too
or
long.
30.
I always say, don't let my gray
years
hair fool you.
ago.
I am old. Okay.
What would you have told yourself about IT or the data management space in the future with young DP that would have maybe blown your mind?
that would have blown my mind.
Yeah, or that you wish you would have known. You can go either direction.
Either way, get to know software more than hardware. There was
Fascinating.
a beginning stages. You were there. The beginning
Sure.
stages of storage was really more about hardware. How big's the hard drive?
Yeah.
What HBAs
What
can you
chips are we
fit?
using?
And
Blah, blah,
you
yeah.
get into the weeds with
Drives.
that stuff, and you get lost on the functionality. You get lost
Mm-hmm.
on the usability. You get lost on the reason it's there in the first place, right? If you've ever configured any legacy platforms like SimCLI on the Symmetrics or anything, it loses the impact when all you do is focus on the hardware and setting it up a certain way. And I would have liked to have been better tuned into software
I like
than
it.
hardware back in the
Well,
early days.
It's a good bookend since we've largely had a software-oriented discussion with
This
episode. So
company is
you wrapped
software with hardware that enables it to do what it does,
yeah,
right?
exactly, which is
Kaz
super
would
fun.
probably, he's going to chase me down now because Kaz is going to be like, no, 1 plus
He's
1
going to
equals.
hit you over the head with
He's
a
going to be like,
DFM.
1 plus 1 equals DFM, Porman.
Yeah,
But
that's
no,
right.
yeah.
Nah, that's great. I love it. Well, fantastic, gents. We went longish, but we did cover it in a lot of good detail.
It's a good topic to go along.
It is. It's a good one to go. So everybody, learn more about the Enterprise Data Cloud. I think that's the first thing that I would suggest to folks
where we're headed.
because Fusion is the biggest component of that, right?
Yep.
And making everything happen. There's interactive demo videos that you and the team, you guys have
The Pure
created.
360, yeah. Pure 360 is a really big
fantastic.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody find
and
Pure
you can see Mike
360.
talking all about it on there.
Mike's talking about it. You can learn about some other things.
Test
and
drive.
then there's a test drive.
Test
right?
drive.
So
Yeah,
the best
test drive's
part is
another great one.
Test
Yeah.
drive and the capability to go actually use it, right? Use it, try it, see it before. Those things are great. And beyond that, viewer, storage confessions, right? If you've been watching the episodes, email us at pureport@purestorage.com. If you have a story like Mike, like
Hopefully
Don't-
not.
don't
Hopefully
be
not.
like Mike.
1,292
Don't
miles and
be like Mike.
$1.4 million per second or per minute.
It was actually per minute.
But
I think
still, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot
yeah.
of minutes, right?
We're splitting hairs at
Per
that
minutes.
point,
But
man.
yeah, send those in to us at pureport@purestorage.com, and maybe we'll share one of yours on a future episode. Hey, good time, guys.
Yeah, had
Yeah,
fun.
thanks.
It's great.
Glad you're here. Let's do it again.
Good times, man.
very soon. The next time
Yeah,
you're in town.
I appreciate
absolutely.
All right. It's a great
Awesome.
opportunity. And thank you for checking out this episode of the Pure Report. Share with friend, share with colleague, and we'll keep the great guests like Mike and like Don coming on to the program. And with that, we will wrap for Pure Storage for my good buddies, Mike Nelson and Don Porman. This is Rob Ludeman saying, don't look back. Something might be gaining on you.